In general, we're going to be talking about enabling the workspace. Today's session is going to concentrate specifically into the topic of Zenworks application virtualization. Today, we're teaming out. Joining me today is Todd Laycock. He's a sales engineer in North America, as well as me, Oscar Sanchez, also a sales engineer in Novell, North America. So with that, let's go with the next slide, please. So in front of you, and I'm not going to read this to you guys, but in front of you is just a small friendly list of items or topics that we're going to be talking, we're going to be covering in a friendly manner throughout this presentation, starting with IT challenges in the workspace. So let's go with that one. So IT as an organization generally is charged to support the business by assuring IT governance, right? Risk management, compliance, and cost efficiencies. IT plays an integral role in the business by helping companies improve business processes, achieve cost efficiencies, drive revenue, grow and maintain a competitive advantage in the marketplace. So the challenges that IT organizations have to deal with has not decreased at all, and I'm sure all of you can agree with that. IT organizations today have to put their arms around a very large and rapidly device proliferation, employees bringing their own devices to work, commonly known as the BYOD. So the blending of personal and business use technology devices and applications, which is known as IT consumerization, new apps, all legacy apps, self-services, virtualization, file access using all the devices, printing, and many more challenges are all basically today's challenges and requirements. As you can see, complexity is increasing and work increases without additional resources. Once again, I'm sure you can agree with that. The workspace has changed. Users today want to get their job done by using any service from any device, from any locations, and anytime. Employees have good technology at home, and they expect to be able to use it at work as well. This blending of personal and business technology is having a significant impact on corporate IT departments, which traditionally use or issue and deals with controlling the technology that employees use to do their jobs. So with all those and many new options that users are going around and bypassing IT departments, this is not a good thing. Consequently, IT departments are faced with deciding how to protect their networks and manage technology that they perhaps did not procure or provision to begin with. So ignoring the needs of this new workforce is probably not what the business has charged IT as an objective. Doing business as usual and not embracing the new workspace requirements will result in losing efficiency, productivity, compliance, security, and money as well. So Novell is here to help IT to take the next step. That step is to facilitate the user's needs and increase productivity. That step requires a new efficient workspace. This is a key word. Keep that in mind. So let's talk about, before we jump into more into the application management topic, I want to talk about user-centric. So let's talk about how Novell can help IT transition from a device-centric to a user-centric workspace. A device is just something that helps the user get the job done. So why not focus on the users, right? This is a huge time saver when every user has multiple devices or moves around. Imagine configuring policies that define what users in a specific groups get in terms of access, applications, and other resources. Imagine just creating a new user identity and just associate this policy to automate all the required provisioning. When the user's role changes, the rights, access, and application provisioning automatically changes based on that new need that the user has. For a user who is promoted, for instance, the user-based workspace, or I like to call this the user-based management, automatically sets up the new environment the user needs based on their role, or their new role for that matter, right? And for a user leaving the company, for example, the user-based management automatically deprovisions access to all resources and applications they once had. So when it comes to security, IT always has to balance between protection and productivity. Users need a low security setting to work in protected environments such as inside the firewall, right, or inside the corporate environment. But when they take their devices out beyond the firewall, they need a high security setting. In most cases, however, security settings are made to devices, not to users. Users won't go out and constantly make those changes by themselves as they move from one environment to the other environment. So IT cannot follow them to actually make those changes for them to facilitate those specific security settings. With a user-based management, nobody has to worry about those settings. IT defines security policies based on the safety level of a given environment, and those settings apply dynamically as users move between one environment and another. Change management with a, once again, to the user-based management, is simply a matter of opening a user account and making the setting to that account. So IT doesn't have to touch endpoint devices to make the change happen. They can just go through the user account and the change cascades through every device that the user uses. IT needs to empower the user but retain those basic IT objectives that we have already talked about or highlighted previously, while also keeping the balance and continue provisioning, maintaining, tracking, protecting a large number of the client devices. It's all about empowering those users, managing those endpoints. It's all about really creating that new desired workspace. So now let's discuss how IT can enable this fantastic workspace. So how about by integrating, automating, and providing self-services to enable the workspace and free up the IT organization? Integrate by providing seamless consolidation, integration of all systems which provide a 360 view of the workspace. Automate by providing your users with any service from any device through the automated process. And self-service by empowering the users to select any services from IT using any device from whatever at any time. So increase user satisfaction and productivity by meeting user needs throughout, powering self-service by saying yes and allow and provision all those new and exciting new devices, personal or corporate. And also, free up IT resources and optimize the speed and agility by supporting automation of common processes and tasks, by integrating the needed technologies and tools to manage those user devices, by slashing the time required to test and deploy applications using virtualization. So provide the business with the benefits of being in compliance and secure by knowing what you have and maintain those users' devices secure. By providing a management paradigm that focuses not just on those devices, as I mentioned earlier, but on the users that uses those devices. And by reducing the overhead of a standard task, automating as much as possible when it comes to managing the devices. By reducing the cost of managing endpoint devices, this is a constant cost draining in your business. There is never enough of it to do everything that needs doing, much less do anything that needs to do when you need to do it. So enable the new challenging workspace by creating an efficient, service-oriented IT organization that promotes productive, satisfied, and happy users. That is the workspace that you need to look at. That's the workspace that you need to create. Now, and I think at this point what I'd like to do is I'd like to team up with Todd and let him cover the portion of the application management that actually is going to talk about all things Zenworks application virtualization. Todd, floor is yours. Thank you.
Thanks, Oscar. And so just a reminder, if you guys have any questions or anything you need clarified, type it into the chat or question box, and Oscar and I will get to it as it comes in. But let's talk about application management, putting it all together with a unified endpoint management solution. The challenges of the application management, when you think about it, more and more organizations are interested in virtualization precisely so that they can control costs, increase flexibility and productivity. When you think about it, virtualization is so widespread for servers and has already proved its worth there. The organizations are looking to extend this approach, and either virtualizing the entire workstation or virtualizing the client applications. In a survey carried out by Forrester Research in August of 2011, only 10% of the respondents did not have a project of this nature in place. Half of the respondents had client virtualization projects between 1 and 500 users, and over 60% of them plan to exceed this amount in the next 2 years. And according to Gartner, virtualization represents the challenge that will have the greatest impact on infrastructures by 2015. Of the companies that responded to the Forrester Research survey, over 60% cited a reduction in costs among the motivating factors behind these projects. An improvement in security was cited by 59% of them, and the simplification of management and distribution of remedial action was important to over 50% of them. 47% of the respondents were concerned about problems with operating system migration, and 42% about just simplifying application deployment. And when you think about these challenges, we've all run into them at some point. Who wouldn't want to simplify this? So when you're faced with the challenges of application access or incompatibility, you want to make sure you have the best weapons available. Arm yourself with Novell Zenworks application virtualization. I'm probably going to shorten that to ZAV many times throughout the presentation. So, but Novell Zenworks application virtualization is a software tool that lets you quickly bundle Windows applications with virtual wrappers so they can run on Windows workstations regardless of what other applications are there. Because no server-side components required to deploy ZAV, your increased efficiency and cost savings begin immediately. When we're talking about reducing costs, it's not just virtualizing the commercial and in-house applications, but also being able to put those unused licenses to work. You can prevent license creep by assigning predefined expiration dates to virtualized apps used by short-term workers, contractors, interns, or students. So you don't have to keep such a large float of licenses anymore to make sure that you have enough for all those temporary workers. And when we talk about increasing accessibility, Oscar mentioned it before, end users want to use the applications they want from any device, regardless of where they are. By virtualizing applications, you can make those tools available on a flash drive, a secure company website, or streamed through a corporate app store with no installation, configuration, or setup concerns. Your workforce can be both mobile and productive. And ideally, the only time you'd have the potential for application conflicts between operating systems in your environment would be during operating system upgrades. But in the real world, migration by attrition is common, and the IT department supports multiple operating systems concurrently. Novell Zenworks virtualized applications are self-contained and allow users to use the tools requiring different browsers or operating systems side by side. Users experience minimal downtime and work continues virtually uninterrupted through upgrades and beyond. Because ZAV decouples virtualized applications from the operating system, IT staff can rapidly test new applications against a clean operating system rather than repeatedly performing the cumbersome task of testing against a combination of existing applications and customizations. You can slash the cost of testing applications and supporting them after deployment by using virtualized apps with Zenworks. When you think about it, trying to test out every possible combination of image and application that's deployed to any of your users, and then testing out this new application on top of it, it's such a monumental task that most people don't bother with it, it seems. So, with a single click, Zenworks virtualized apps can run directly off a flash drive, website, file share, no installation or configuration necessary. It saves time for the users and reduces the IT staff involvement. Application streaming, in fact, delivers applications 5 to 20 times faster than traditional downloading, using predictive intelligence to deliver the tools the users need. What I mean by that, when you build these virtualized apps, you have the option to profile them too, to show the packager, the packaging studio, what portions of that application are required first for the user to get into the application and start using it. If you virtualize Word, you might not need spell check immediately, and that could be brought down later on, but the user would already be able to use Word before it's fully downloaded. What happened there? There we go. And security. With Zenworks application virtualization, you can maintain enterprise security by restricting admin rights on individual machines while still letting users access to the applications they need. This helps you ensure your applications are only being used on the machines you want. Administrators can also securely place virtualized apps in Windows desktop containers. These containers are accessible to the users either through their desktop or through the self-service web portal, and users get access to the applications, the files, and the data they need while everything is secured through authentication and encryption of the container. And as an additional layer of cost saving and license compliance, you can configure applications virtualized with Zenworks to check for a Zenworks agent before running on a given machine. So if the Zenworks agent isn't available on that machine, if it's not registered to the right zone, the virtualized app simply won't run. It gives you another measure of control over where your applications are allowed to run. So enabling the new workspace. Zenworks packages applications into these little virtual executables that run isolated from the desktop operating system. It eliminates conflicts, collisions, and application failures. These extremely small, extremely mobile executable files can be deployed like any MSI via email or USB drives or even as an app store for customers who need to vastly reduce the time and labor involved with planning, testing, packaging, and deploying applications, or respond to the bring your own device trend to deliver applications to workforce-provided devices. Other self-service applications for users to download anytime they're needed. Did not realize this one. What's this one doing? There we go. So application and installs and upgrades require massive change control processes that are so time-consuming that 10 to 25% of applications are installed, those processes are so time-consuming, and yet 10 to 25% of all applications are installed via packaging. Desktop virtualization often creates yet another environment that IT needs to manage, patch, and update, adding even more time and expense. Up to 90% of apps end up sitting on the shelf unused. Most have to be installed manually, and IT just can't deploy apps quickly enough or easily enough to keep up with the demand. To solve these problems, Zenworks application virtualization performs these following fundamental tasks. We give you web-based templates. It gives you access to an online repository of application template wizards so that you can quickly build, configure, and customize popular virtual applications in a simple step-by-step process. I'll show you a little bit about that later. Application harvesting. So if you already have a workstation that has many applications installed on the desktop, you could install ZAV Studio and tell it to harvest, scan the machine for all installed applications, and match this list against our online repository of templates, and quickly virtualize all the matched applications in a single step. And of course, you can always do standalone virtual applications too, where you can package all the application files, settings, runtimes, and any other components into a single compact executable that runs anywhere independent of the device operating system. even more, with license control, you're able to time-bomb applications, configure them to run for a set number of days or expire on a specific date, distribute. It really gives you the option to distribute apps to users without fear of your expensive licenses either disappearing or being used by more users than you have rights for. And really, we make it so incredibly easy to deploy. Again, launch it directly from a USB drive and automatically register itself with the host system. So for example, if you virtualized Office, Excel, and you double-click on a spreadsheet file after the virtualized app is registered with the host system, it just launches the virtualized app immediately for you. Even if Excel is not installed on the machine, it's just your virtualized copy. You're able to download the app through a corporate file share or through the App Store, of course, or use standard network protocols, HTTP, HTTPS, to stream the app. The bottom line, app virtualization lets you give your users the apps they need when and where they need them. So before, an organization that couldn't deploy apps quickly enough, was frustrated with conflicts, DLL issues, software version conflicts, the process of going through all these installs, upgrades, and testing, or the security of their applications. Once they have ZAV in place, they can consume the secure apps they need on demand, provide a self-service app request to their end users, and basically eliminate the conflicts and complex installations that sometimes go along with these applications. So any questions or comments so far? Anything out there, Oscar?
All right, so checking the board, I don't see any questions at this point, so let's keep moving.
Okay, so I'm going to walk you through how to build an application. In this case, we're going to follow through the process for IE8 using the online template library. So once you launch ZAV Studio, make it really easy to virtualize your applications. You have the option to build from a template, scan your desktop for the installed applications. That would be the harvesting option. Or if it's not something we already have a recipe for, a template for, you can always snapshot the application, the system before the application is installed, snapshot it again afterwards, and capture the changes to it done by the install. So lots of different ways to virtualize these apps. And just to name a few of the applications that we provide templates for, 7-Zip, Adobe Reader, Firefox, Chrome, Internet Explorer, Microsoft Office, of course, LibreOffice, Novell Groupwise, and Instant Messenger, and dozens more. So let's go through the process to virtualize IE8. First thing we would do is click on Build a Virtual Application from a Template, which will contact our online library of all the templates, download the list, the updated current list of them, and you basically just point and click, select your application out of the list. Some of the applications, such as 7-Zip or some other freeware apps, don't actually require the application to be installed locally. So you would actually be able to just double-click on or click on 7-Zip and hit Next, and it would actually take you all the way through downloading all the files and components and turning it into a virtualized app without it ever being installed on your desktop. But Internet Explorer 8, as you see here, we do require local install. So if you hit Next, the very next thing it does is it downloads the latest recipe, the latest template, asks you to begin the import process, and basically just as quickly as I'm going through these slides, pulls all the files together for Internet Explorer, all the registry settings that it knows IE needs, and puts it all together, asking you what output file to generate the executable for. Once it's done, You're able to save the configuration so that you can tweak it later if you need to. For example, if you change the home page and want that saved in your virtualized app, or disable the automatic update settings. This way you don't have to go through the entire build process again. I know it's really easy for something like Internet Explorer where we give you a template, but if you were doing this for another application that we don't have a template for, you would want to save the configuration just to be able to tweak it easily. And then it builds the executable and lets you run it immediately after that. The end result is that you have a virtualized application. You can see here a list of the file system. The left-hand side here showing the folder structure on the system I packaged Internet Explorer from, and on the right-hand side a list of the files in that particular folder. Now, from here, you're able to change the isolation on these files. And when we talk about isolation, that's to prevent the virtualized app from interacting with files outside of its sandbox. So when you think about it, isolating these files is basically your way of saying none of the files listed here should be looked for by the app outside of the sandbox if it says full isolation. Otherwise, you could allow, for example, a virtualized app to write to the desktop still, or isolate that fully as well so that nothing can be written outside of the virtualized app. I think I see we have a question out there. Oh, no, that's just Oscar saying questions can be typed into the chat window. Okay. So once you have this virtualized app, there's a couple of things that you can do right from here, right from the toolbar. Publish it to a USB drive. So just plug in your USB drive, let it build the executable in Sandbox, put it all into the USB drive for distribution. Or you can publish it directly to a ZAV server, a Zenworks application virtualization server. Have it upload into the server to make it available for streaming. So speaking of isolation and security, you can see here some of the additional settings that we're able to set here, such as spawning any child processes within the virtualized environment, keeping it all within that virtualized instance so that nothing can be written outside of the virtualized app unless you so chose. Even to the point where we can isolate the clipboard. So you can still copy and paste within the application, but you wouldn't be able to copy and paste outside of the application. So if you had a virtualized copy of Notepad, for example, you could copy and paste within Notepad, the virtualized Notepad, all you wanted. But as soon as you tried to paste it into a Word document or something else that was outside that virtualized app, you would see instead the contents of the normal Windows clipboard being pasted in there. And the same thing, if you tried to copy and paste from outside the app into the app, you would see just the isolated clipboard's contents pasted in there, not what came from the Windows clipboard. And no, I probably got that a little bit confusing there. So there's a question out there. If you publish IE8 virtualized to the web server for streaming, could you access that on an Android or iOS device? The answer is no. This is strictly a Windows technology right now. You would be able to access it on any Windows operating system, basically, from XP on up to Windows 8.1. And of course, we see much more frequently people are virtualizing older apps from, say, the XP era and trying to get them to run on the newer operating systems rather than going the other way, trying to run IE11 on Windows XP. Probably there would be a little more challenge involved there than bringing IE6 forward to Windows 8.1. So, good question. So with the virtualized web browser that I have here with IE8, that's usually only half the story, right? The other half of the story is that you need a specific runtime version, such as Java or Flash, or maybe even a specific version of SQL Express or anything like that, when you're building other applications. You can see here within ZAV Studio, we actually give you the ability to plug in these various runtime environments, build them as a component that ties right into your virtualized application. And just in case you need something else as a component like these runtimes, you can turn basically almost any application into a component just like these. So turn it into an SVM file to be consumed by one of these virtualized apps. And again, once this app is built, it's ready to be run, published to a USB drive or to a ZAV server, or even uploaded directly into Zenworks configuration management for mass deployment. So it's kind of scary how portable the application has become. So let's look at what we can do to control that. First, we can set up the application with an expiration timer on it so that it no longer runs after a specific date. So a great use case for this is if you're giving the application out to students or contractors, consultants, someone who has a short period of employment or a short contract with you. And no, we have the ability to have the app check against an internet time server, not just the system clock, so you don't have to worry about someone just setting the date back and forth all the time. Once the date's reached, they get the expiration message that you configure here. It might be to say contact us for a new version of it or a non-expired version, or it might just say thanks for your time and goodbye, however you want to put it in there. The second thing we can do is require the Zenworks adaptive agent to be installed on the workstation, and even have the device register to a specific zone to run. So you might be able to find a copy of the Zen agent somewhere and just expect, now that I've got this installed, I'll be able to run the virtualized app. But we can say, no, it has to be registered to Acme zone in order for it to actually allow the executable to run. And also from this screen, you're able to publish directly from ZAV Studio into Zen Configuration Management, right into the content repo. So this way, it's one less step. You don't have to go over to the Zen Control Center to upload the executable. And the third thing that we can do is require the workstation to be a member of a specific Active Directory domain, or even require that the user is logged on as a member of a specific group in the Active Directory. If those conditions aren't met, again, the app won't run. So we've got a lot of built-in ways to control how and when your application is allowed to run. But in case there is some case not handled by the security settings we've already covered, there's also support for writing your own shim DLL that might be to ensure that the app is only run on a specific subnet in your environment, or to contact a specific server to see, can I run this app? Really, your imagination is the limit for that startup shim DLL. And we do have a couple of examples in our documentation on how to build one of those. So I want to pause for just a moment here and show you on my desktop here. I have IE. What version of IE is this? This is IE11 on Windows 8.1. And in my apps here, I have other copies here. I have Microsoft Internet Explorer 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. I think I already have some of these open. I have here Internet Explorer 8. 9 is off my screen right now. Hold on, there it is. There's 9, and let's get 6 up. You can see all of these are running on Windows 8.1, all simultaneously, side by side, all going out to the internet, seemingly without any issues. So great use case there if you've got a website that requires a specific version of Internet Explorer, or even a specific version of Flash, Java, whatever your runtime environments might be there. Let's get back to this. So that was an overview of ZAV Studio, just packaging Internet Explorer 8. But let's move on to ZAV Server and the containers that it makes available to you. Here you can see the end user's view of ZAV Server, where the user local test is logged into the server. They're able to access the usual suspects, their favorite applications, recently used, all applications available to them, etc. They're also able to store files in the folders you see on the left side outside of any containers. The reason for that would be if they wanted to launch one of these virtualized apps to keep working on a document later on. Not quite the same level of isolation as our containers. But I see there's another...
Don't worry about those comments. It's mine.
Oh, okay. Oscar's just answering the questions. Cool. Thanks, Oscar. Containers, though. Here you can see the work container. It's already unlocked, so I'm able to access it. I can just click the lock to unlock it, lock it again as needed. And really, when you look at a container, it's really just a collection of files and applications that can be used together. Nothing outside of the container is able to access the files, as the container is encrypted and isolated from the rest of the operating system. So when a user wants to edit, say, this container file, they would just right-click on it in the browser and choose which application to open it with, the list of applications from the container itself. Oops. Once they launch it, say they launch it with Notepad++, here you can see it actually is streaming Notepad++ through the web browser to the user. And once it pops up, it looks just like a normal application. The user uses it just like they always do. There's not really any learning curve here. They've launched the application. It looks and feels like a normal application. When they save their changes or close the application, those changes are synced back to the container on the server. And then once the user manually locks the container or closes the browser or logs out, the data is encrypted and can't be accessed again until the user logs back in or unlocks it. And then another note about compliance. When we talk about how portable these applications have become, through ZAV Server, you're actually able to limit the number of times that the application can be run, whether that's based on the unique users who are running it, the simultaneous users, how many unique devices it could be launched on, or how many simultaneous. You can set this to be equal to whatever your license count is, so you can be fairly certain that you're not exceeding those limits. And of course, we also give you the option to restrict the application to run on one device at a time per user. Also within ZAV Server, you have the ability to set an expiration date separate from that virtualized app that you previously built. This way, whichever date comes first, either the one in the built-in app or the one from here on the ZAV Server, that it would prevent the user from running it again after that date. So that's useful for the case where these applications are cached offline for use when you're not able to log back into the web server, but you still have the ZAV plugin running, letting you access your applications and containers. So any questions out there? Doesn't look like it. It looks like
I got no questions.
We must be doing a good job, Oscar.
Good job, buddy.
So just want to recap. Remember those application management challenges, the number of applications, how little time you have to test them and package them and get them out to your end users, or trying to deal with those problems during and after all the installations. Really, we give you a way to eliminate many of these challenges. you no longer have to test against every possible combination. You just test against a clean machine and keep it isolated from the other applications out there. You don't have to install it. You just have to deploy the executable, copy it to somewhere the end users can get to it or into the ZAV server. Once it's in ZAV server, it makes it really easy for your end users with their bring your own device trend to get access to those applications, and really gives them an easy way to self-service and get the apps they need when they need them. So we started this conversation today talking about some major challenges IT organizations face when it comes to managing endpoints. Then we described how Novell can address those issues by leveraging the feature set of the Novell Zenworks suite. So I just want to point out, here's a quick representation of what we cover and how Novell Zenworks helps IT organizations enable that desired new workspace. So for more detailed information about the Zenworks suite or about app virtualization in general, please be sure to visit the product webpage. The resource library has a ton of videos out there, little 2 to 5 minute videos on how to run through all these different tasks. And of course there's the evaluation version available as well. And I'll open it up for any questions at this point. So Oscar, there's a question, is it possible to set up ZAV streaming server in branch offices, but does it synchronize? Synchronize, I'm assuming, between a corporate centrally located server. Good question. There is a synchronization process. I can't recall exactly the details about it. What I like to do is take your Martin, get your contact info. It will definitely send you the how-to or details on what happened on the synchronization for, in this case, branch offices and so forth. And don't forget too, you can always publish these virtualized apps into Zenworks configuration management. Have ZCM actually handle the distribution to the branch office and launch it directly from the content repo. Yeah, in that case, Todd is correct. In that case, and we're looking at nothing but content in this case. So if the content on this and the streaming server happens to be a directory share or per se, Zenworks configuration management can actually definitely handle that type of synchronization right there for you. Sure enough. Okay, so it is 1:45. There's any other questions out there from the audience? First of all, I'd like to thank Todd for his time to host this friendly chat about Zenworks application virtualization. And then again, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for spending some time with us on the first of the series of enabling the workspace featuring the Novell Zenworks application virtualization. At this time, once again, the last slide that Todd had in displays right there will definitely get you more information about the product, not only about Zenworks application virtualization, but also about the entire suite of features and products that Todd mentioned as well to be in the Zenworks suite. With that, my friends, thanks again for joining us today. We'll welcome your comments. We'll welcome you anytime, anywhere, and please join us on the next Enabling the Workspace series coming up sometime in a month or so. Thank you very much. Have a great day.